Well, beloved, this is indeed the day that the Lord has made, and I'm so grateful that God has allowed us an opportunity to gather virtually in this space one more time. So before we take off, I want you to like this and share this experience, whether you're watching it on Facebook. I need you to share it and invite somebody to engage our midweek service with us online. And if you're on YouTube, I want you to send that link to someone and let them know that Pastor Ingram is on and he has something on his heart that he wants to share with the people of God. By way of announcements, just one day of announcements that I have, well, really 2 days of announcements. On Saturday, this coming Saturday, I want to remind you of our garage sale that's hosted by our esteemed hospitality ministry. They do phenomenal events, and I think that Saturday will be no different. So feel free to register during the week here at the church and to join us April 20th, 2024 at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to get out of here before the sun get really, really hot. And it's opportunity for us to generate revenue by unclogging our closets. Now, that starts at 8. It's from 8 to 3. That's outside, and on the inside in the overflow and or the sanctuary, however they work that out. The men's ministry under the leadership of President Jerry Scott, Deacon Jerry Scott, will be here Saturday at 10 a.m. It's only 1 hour, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I would solicit all of our men to come and to be a part of that experience, right? So let's start with a word of prayer. Kind Father, in Jesus' name, thank you for this opportunity to gather on your day with your people to express your word as your spokesperson. God, I pray that you allow this word to permeate the hearts of so many on tonight, not to the end that for any other reason, but for that souls will be saved, lives will be transformed, not for form or fashion, but for your glory. We ask that you give everyone a mind of understanding and a mind of confirmation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So for those of you that just joined us tonight, permit me to connect tonight's lesson as a continuation from last week's lesson. I realized that one of the members, a few of them came to me and expressed, they said, well, Pastor, some of your best teachings on Tuesday and your best sermons on Sunday stem from your devotional life with God. I was intrigued by that and pricked so much so that I decided to start a public showing this month of my private devotional life. And privately, I've been working through spiritual disciplines. So last week, so many of you responded to last week's midweek Bible study, how you were intrigued and blessed as a result of last week's experience with us. And so I think phase 2, or part 2 rather, would be just as exhilarating and encouraging for all of us tonight. So the second spiritual discipline that I want to deal with is rest. Spiritual disciplines part 2. So let's start off with our key verse tonight, because that kind of anchors our conversation. Find me in Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. And I'll be reading from the NIV. Exodus 20, 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Verse 9, 6 days you should labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or your daughter, nor your maid or female servant, nor your animal. Your animals can't even work. And nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. That constitutes our conversation tonight about the spiritual discipline of rest. The spiritual discipline of resting and the Sabbath. Stories told of two woodsmen challenging each other, and an amateur woodsman challenged the mature veteran woodsman. They were challenged, the challenge was rather to see in a certain amount of time who could chop the most wood. And the amateur in the competition, if you will, he chopped away, vigorously chopping away, only taking a brief break throughout the day just to take a few minutes just to swallow his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But he was chopping every second of the day. Then the veteran took countless breaks, took a substantial amount of breaks for water, breaks for food, and for snacks. And this was bewildering to everyone because at the end of the day, the veteran had chopped substantially more wood than the amateur. And the amateur was enraged. He said, "Hey, I only took a short break to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you've chopped more wood than me, and every time I looked around, you were resting. Every time I looked around, you were pausing. Every time I looked around, you were eating food. How is it that you were able to chop more wood than I was, and I rarely ever took a break?" To which the veteran responds, he says, "Let me tell you what you missed." He says, "Every time I paused to sit down and take a break," he said, "I took the time to sharpen my axe." And that, brothers and sisters, became the differentiation between the veteran and his victory and the amateur and his friction in life. He says, "I took the time. Every time I sat down, I never neglected to sharpen my axe." And here is the pivotal question that opens up our discussion tonight about this spiritual discipline. When is the last time you stopped to sharpen your axe? When is the last time you stopped to sharpen your axe and rest? Or are you chopping away at life as if you are unstoppable and the world will stop running without you? When is the last time you paused to sharpen your axe of life? Or are you chopping away at life as if the world just won't know what to do if you take a break and rest? The unfortunate reality is that some of us have mastered the art of being everything to everybody and failed at being everything to yourself. Many of us shouting and dancing and bucking and shouting, and that's great, but we have seemingly mastered the art of being everything to mama, everything to daddy, everything to the church, everything to your spouse, and being absolutely nothing for you. Let me press it early in this experience tonight. Being everything to everyone, but being nothing to you is a deeper issue. Because neglecting yourself is a form of self-hate. Let me say that again. Being everything to everybody and refusing to be everything to yourself, the person in the mirror, is a deeper issue, because neglecting self is a sign of self-hate. I need you to write this down in the comment section tonight. Refusing to put a consistent smile on my own face is a form of self-hate. I ain't even hollering, but I'm teaching tonight. Refusing to put a consistent smile on my own face is a sign of self-hate. So the goal is to make strides to be a better you. However, you cannot be better for God, or better for your spouse, or better for your occupation, or better for your church until you first learn how to be better for you. Let me tell you this. I've said this in sermonic experiences in the past, the best thing you can be for you is a better you. The best thing you can be for your family or your spouse is a healthy you. The best thing you can be for your church is a spiritual you. The best thing that you can do for your children is be a happy you every now and then. The only thing that can stop you from being a better you guessed it, is you. So our goal tonight is to really deal with that. Really deal with that, because stress is what you get when you don't have the discipline to put systems in place. And for many of us, life is lifing in the terminology of our younger generation. Life is lifing because we've been plugged in too long. We've been plugged in too long. You've been plugged in too long. And let me give you a telltale sign. A sign that you've been plugged in. We're dealing with the spiritual discipline of rest tonight. Unplugging. Resting from our labors, resting from our responsibilities, resting from who everybody wants us to be. I'm going to get there in a minute, but resting from everything around us, paid and unpaid labor, and we need to unplug sometimes. You not burn out, you just need a vacation. Hello, somebody. You're not, hear me. Here's a telltale sign you need to unplug. Here it is. When you're snappy all the time. A telltale sign you need to unplug is when you're always grumpy. A telltale sign that you need to unplug is when you're real short with people. A telltale sign that you need to unplug is when you have no patience for nobody. A telltale sign that you need to unplug for a moment is when you always mean and nasty as hell. A sign that you need to unplug is when you're easily irritated. Irritation is a sign that you need some rest. Being so easily irritated and so easily bent out of shape every time something doesn't go your way, or someone says a remark that's really not an attack, but you accept it as an attack because in your mind, I'm just tired. I'm just fed up. You need rest. You need to unplug. Hear me. You do your worst thinking when you have failed to rest. That's not just Bible. That's not just Dr. Ingram. That's scientifically proven. You do your worst thinking when you have not had any rest. And if I could push it, I would say you sin the most when you ain't had no rest, because you ain't thinking right. You sin the most when you don't have any rest. You lean to your own understanding most when you have failed to get the proper rest that's needed. Humans are like electronics. We can fix almost anything in our lives if we first unplug for a moment. Humans are similar to electronics. We can do almost anything if we unplug for a moment. And our prayer tonight is this. You can even put this in the chat tonight. Lord, help me to sit down somewhere. That's the prayer tonight. Lord, and that's not just your prayer, that's my prayer. Lord, help me to sit down somewhere, because a large part of our peace is contingent upon our rest. That's the discipline. It's a large part of our peace and our happiness and our patience and our durability and our attitudes. Our consciousness is solely contingent upon our rest. What is the Sabbath? I'm glad you asked. I did my homework tonight. The Sabbath is a 24-hour block of time in which we stop from work, enjoy rest, practice delight, and contemplate God. One more time. The biblical Sabbath, not this made-up stuff. We Bible-based here at this church. The biblical Sabbath, tucked away in Old Testament antiquity, is a 24-hour block of time in which we stop work, enjoy rest, practice delight, and contemplate God. The traditional Jewish Sabbath begins at sundown on Friday and ends sundown on Saturday. And in most Christian circles, the Sabbath is celebrated either on Saturday or Sunday. You know, okay, we'll get there in a moment. The particular day of the week does not matter. I know what you're going to say. The particular day of the week, it does not matter. What matters is that you set aside a 24-hour block of time and you protect it. Apostle Paul considered no special day in particular. That's the reference there is Romans 14 verses 1 through 17. Paul says, I don't care what day you take. You're not going to get no closer to God because you take a Tuesday and not a Saturday. You are not going to get any closer to God or any better in your health if you take a Sunday and you don't take a Thursday, or you take a Friday and you don't take a Monday. It doesn't matter. The key component here is carving out a 24-hour block of time and protecting it. Protect it. And so let me give you some practical biblical guidelines for unplugging. Number one, it's so simple, I'm almost afraid to even utter it. The first practical guideline for unplugging and celebrating the Sabbath as God intended for us to celebrate it, here it is: stop. Stop. It's easier said than done. Yes, I'm talking to you tonight and me. Just stop. 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 The Sabbath is first and foremost a day in which we cease all work. Hear me, paid and unpaid. Because some folk just they think that at a good break is when you ain't got to clock in and nobody job. No. Because for many of us, particularly mothers, you got multiple jobs. You got to be a mama. You got to be an employee, right? You got a man at work you got to listen to. Then you got to come home and you got another man that you got to listen to at home. And then you got to be mama and so forth and so on. And you got to do this and you got to do that. Listen, paid and unpaid. And on this holy day, we let go of the illusion that we are indispensable to the rest of the world. We realize that you will never, this is what I need all of us to realize, including myself. I told you that these lessons are bleeding from my personal devotional life, and this is what I want all of us to understand. Realize that you will never be able to do it all. Here's another one. I need you to realize that you are replaceable. One more time. You can't do everything. And you are replaceable. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Here it is. God can manage the universe without our help for a day or 7. 7 is for the vacation, Hear me. You can't do everything. Now, you good, but you ain't God. I'm talking to Darold now. Darold, you good, but you ain't God. Right? You are replaceable. As good as you are, as handsome as you are, insert that. You are replaceable, and God can manage his church without you for a few days. Hear me. I'm not sure, but I have a sneaky suspicion that God can handle the whole world while you take a vacation. Now, call me crazy. Not many people do, and I'm okay with that. But I have a sneaky suspicion that God might be able to help your job survive if you take a break. I got a sneaky suspicion that the world will not stop because you take a break. One more time. The world, your home, your church, your job, your community will not break or dissemble in shambles if you decide to take a break. Here is the jaw-dropping reality. If you don't think the world will keep spinning, if you die, if you think the world will refuse to spin if you decide to take a break, this is what you do. In the words of my grandmama, haul off and die. If you think your church can't make it without you, haul off and die. If you think your spouse can't make it without you, haul off and die. If you think that job that pays you well won't be able to operate without you? Haul off and die. Hear me, I'm telling you right now, if you died today, by Friday, your job will be on Indeed.com. I just said something now. If you died today, I'm trying to show you how valuable you are to God in our fellowship of the Sabbath, but I want you to see how invaluable we are as humans. If you died today, Friday, no later than Monday, your job would be on Indeed.com. It'll be on Indeed. Let me bring it closer to the church. If I died today, God forbid, if I died today, Sunday, there will be somebody here in this pulpit saying, as we mourn the loss of our pastor, open your Bibles. There's a word from the Lord. If you think, listen, if I died today, God forbid, somebody will be in this very same spot at the very same time next week telling you, as we mourn the loss of our pastor, there's a lesson that I want to share with you that God has given me. How often die? You think you're that important? How often die? You think you're that invaluable? You think can't nobody replace you? How off and die? Then the whole world will show you that you are not as valuable as you think you are. You are not as valuable. Hear me. This is the first command is to just stop. 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 And here's the second command. When you stop from all of that stuff that you think you can't be replaced from, this is what you do next. Rest. 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 Once you stop, rest. Once we stop, we can accept God's invitation to rest. God rested after his hard work in creation. That's Genesis 2 and 1 through 4. This is an invitation to do something beyond stopping. It is an invitation to rest. The key of the Sabbath is to rest from labor, paid and unpaid, but it is also an invitation to rest your mind. And this is something I've seemingly failed at in my personal life, because no matter where I am, I can be on the beach with my toes in the sand and still be worrying about this church. I can be in an airplane in a different country, enjoying time with my wife, and my mind will still be running about the mechanics of Sunday morning, still be running about the sound system, still be running about the structure, order of worship, making sure that the preacher, whoever, the visiting preacher and or the associate preacher, don't stay up there all day like some of them do. It's just, get my people out of here by 9:30. What's the offering like? What's the attendance like? And I'm sitting on the beach. Hear me. If you're not going to rest when you stop, what's the significance of stopping? Hear me. Some of us can't sleep at night because our mind just keeps running. And a part of that is because you're overthinking things, but a lot of that is you feel like you just got to keep it going. Some of us can't even sleep at night. Some of us only get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night because we can lay in the bed and our mind just never go to sleep. Many can tell the last time they stop. Many can tell the last time they stop, but very few can tell the last time their mind stopped. When is the last time your mind stopped? You can tell, oh, I took off that day. But what did you do when you took that day off? Oh, I just came back from a vacation. Where was your mind? Was your mind at peace when you took that vacation? Or was you worrying about everything back home? When you stopped and you rested, were you thinking about the kids? When you stopped to rest, were you thinking about your resources back home, which I'm going to get to in a minute? Or did you stop and accept God's invitation to rest your soul? God help me. To rest your mind, to rest your physical body. God calls today the present for a reason. It's because he intends us to enjoy the moment. Many of us struggle, me included. I struggle with enjoying the moment because my mind is running about tomorrow. And that's even against biblical teaching, because the New Testament teaches us that we ought to let tomorrow handle itself. Don't pull troubles from tomorrow. Enjoy the moment. And in the moment of transparency, I told you this lesson flows out of my devotional time, and that's a struggle in my household. My wife can put on an ambiance, and we can go to some nice places. And I struggle with enjoying the moment because my mind just keeps going. I'm on call most of the Tuesdays of the month, as the chaplain of JPSO, so my mind is running. We'll dispatch, give me a call. I'm in school. Am I going to pass the class? Because in a PhD course of work that you can't get no C's like that. So if you get too many, if you get a C, then you're on probation and you get kicked out. So I'm just, it's just so much a church and a nonprofit and this and that, and plus I got 600 plus members reaching out to call, and which I'm graced to handle. But I'm trying to show you how I am guilty as the pastor of stopping but not resting. Stopping and not rest. Here is what all of us need to unplug. All of us need to unplug because humans are like electronics. There is almost nothing we can't fix if we learn how to unplug for a moment, and that's the biblical discipline of the Sabbath. It is to rest from your labors, right? So to walk out this biblical discipline of the Sabbath and resting, we got to stop. We got to stop and understand that the world bigger than you. You are not as valuable as you think you are. And the world can keep going without you. And God will not allow the universe to disappear or break apart because you take a vacation on a Carnival cruise, because you take a vacation in Jamaica, because you take a vacation to Houston, or you go to Miami, or you go somewhere away from where you are. The world will keep going, I promise you. If you don't think so, haul off and die. So the first step to this is to stop. But don't stop if you're not going to rest your mind. So the command is for us to just stop external work, paid and unpaid, and then to rest internally. To rest our minds, to rest our spirits, to rest our hearts, to rest our souls. To embrace the Sabbath, you have to stop and rest. Because if you're not going to rest when you stop, there is no need for you to stop at all. Then the next component is that of delight. Delight. After you stop, you rest. And once your mind is rested, once your heart is rested, once your soul is rested, once your body is rested, then you can delight. After finishing his work in creation, God pronounced it very good. That's Genesis 1:31. He says, as part of observing the Sabbath, God invites us to join in the celebration, to enjoy and delight in his creation and all that he offers us. And that's people, places, and things. Here is the pivotal question. What gives me joy and delight that God has created? What has God created on his earth? Whether it be via people, places, or things that gives me joy and delight. God looks at his work work. He compliments the work of his hands and enjoys what's before him. A major part of the Sabbath is to pause and enjoy and delight in the gifts and creations of this world. What brings you joy and delight that God has gifted you with? What opportunities that God has created in your life that gives you joy and delight? What scenery of this world that God has created with his fingerprint of intellect and love that brings you joy and delight? Stories told of a lady on the verge of retirement, and she, for 30 plus years, was faithful to her job. And all of her younger employees would come back with pictures, and they would come back with stories of what island and or country they had visited. And she collected all of the pictures and all of the stories and started her notes about where she was going. She was on the verge of retirement. She said, when I retire, I'm going to go to all of these places. And she finally started booking these places. She says, after I retire, I'm going to do that. And they gave her a big celebration the day that she retired. She said, I'm going home to pack my bags, to go to this country and that country and do this and eat this cuisine and do that. And the next day, there wasn't a dry eye at her job, because it was the next day that they received word that she died. She died the day she retired. She died the day that she retired. And here is the moral. Don't wait to enjoy life, because tomorrow is a present you may never get. I just said something there. All of you putting off this, making all of it excuse as to why you can't do this and experience that vacation and go on that trip and do that. Listen, don't be like me and not live in the moment every now and then. Because all of us, I haven't, in a moment of transparency, I haven't had a sabbatical in going on 8 years. And every time someone poses this to me, my response is, I'm going to do it next month. I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to do it next year. And here is the discrepancy. I'm preparing for a time I may not even get. Today might be the last day that you see me, because God may be inching up in his eternal chair to lean over the balcony of eternity and call my name on home. And I may tomorrow or the day after that or Sunday after I preach, I may be forced to close my eyes, fold up my earthly tent and move on upstairs. And yet, the period of delight that God has gifted me with, I put on another year. So, Lord, I'm going to go visit that place next, because I got to be at the church. I'm going to visit that place next year. I'm going to do that next year. I'm going to take a sabbatical next year. Hear me. Tomorrow is not promised. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Because if you aren't careful, you'll be planning for a season you may never live to see. You may be planning for a season that you'll never live to see. The charge tonight is for us to submit to the will of God relative to his charge and desire for us to embrace this Sabbath. We know that the Sabbath is not a particular day, but it's just a carved out 24-hour period of time. It can be any day of the week. The goal is whenever you carve out that day, stop from your work, paid and unpaid. When you carve out that day, don't just stop, but rest. Rest your mind, rest your nerves, rest your heart, rest your soul, rest your body. Just rest. And then in that restful moment, delight. God has given us so much. He's done so much for us. He's blessed us with the activity of our limbs to go do so much. And yet many of us are planning for a season of life we might not even live to walk through. Delight in the Lord. A part of delighting in the Lord is delighting in the things that the hand of the Lord has made. Let me say that again. A portion of delighting in the Lord is delighting in the things that his hand has made. Once you delight, I need you to contemplate. Contemplating the love of God is the central factor of the Sabbath. It's the central factor of the Sabbath. What makes the Sabbath a biblical Sabbath is that it is holy to the Lord. It's holy to the Lord. And here's a key thought. We are not taking time off from God, but we are taking time to draw closer to God. You see, the Sabbath is an opportunity to witness the invisible in the visible. This was difficult for me to understand. It is our opportunity to witness the invisible God in the visible earth that he has created. It invites us to pause and look at the handiwork of God and tell him, thank you. Pause to look at the handiwork of God and just say thank you. Pause to look at the trees and tell him thank you. When, growing up, my father used to have a thank you party, and every now and then I find that act being generationally poured onto me. I want to pour it over to everybody, not only in my physical house, but my family, blood family, and my spiritual family, him at MHBC and all of those that join. Every now and then you ought to pause from your work. You ought to pause from your labor, your paid and unpaid, and rest your mind and delight and do things that bring you joy. And every now and then you ought to just pause and lift your hands and tell God, thank you. When is the last time you told him, thank you? Thank you for everything, because everything I have, you gave it to me. Thank you for your handiwork. God, I even thank you for the trees. They provide oxygen. Thank you for the lights, because we wouldn't be able to see. Thank you for the moon. Thank you for the clocks. Thank you for everything that you've done. God, we just want to tell you, thank you. Stop. Rest. Delight in what brings you joy that God has created on his earth. And contemplate the invisible God inside of a visible earth. And just delight and contemplate how handy and how great and how good of a God he really is. Now, let me give you these challenges and I'll bid you farewell. The challenges of plug number one, the challenge number one is we are afraid of what we might discover in ourselves. In large part, many of us struggle with unplugging to pause and rest and delight and contemplate and embrace this whole spiritual discipline of the Sabbath because we are afraid of what we might discover in ourselves. What might we discover? Shame. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of being foundationally flawed, defective, unworthy, and insignificant. Here's a key thought. We are afraid of when you are afraid of what you may see in the mirror, you do everything else to keep you out of it. When you're afraid, many of us don't want to unplug and pause and rest because it will force us to look in the mirror of our lives. And when we are afraid of what we may discover in the mirror, we do everything to stay out of the mirror. You understand? Because guilt says, I committed a mistake. Shame says, I am the mistake. Right? And when you don't feel like you committed a mistake, but you feel like you are the mistake, then you do things to keep you going. You do things to keep you going. And when you feel as if you're the mistake and or you failed so badly, you have to remain busy because your business takes you away from your reality. At some point, here was the therapeutic model tonight. At some point, you have to learn how to deal with the you that you don't like. Somebody type that in the section tonight, in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook. At some point, you have to learn how to deal with the you don't like. Let me hasten. Challenge number 2. Challenges with unplugging. We believe, here's challenge number 2. We believe that the world around us will sink if our hands ain't on it. That's challenge number 2. Challenge number 2 is that we believe that the world around us will sink if our hands are not on it. Here's the key thought. Everything you do or have has been lended to you by God, and it is ours only by stewardship, not by ownership. Hear me. Many of us feel as if the world around us will sink if our hands are not on it. Our marriage will sink if our hands are not on it. Our church will sink if I don't volunteer or if pastor don't show up. Our job will sink if we don't do that. Listen, let me tell you something. Everything you have or been exposed to or been able to achieve in life is yours by stewardship, but it is God's by ownership, which means it is not your ultimate ability or responsibility, rather, to make sure it keeps going. It's God's. Hear me. I will only do my very best. But at the end of the day, it's God's decision if this church grows. It's God's decision if this church dies. It's God's decision how the outcome of our operation. This is mine by stewardship. It is my responsibility to steward it well, not by ownership. This ain't my church. I just work here. Understand that. Hear me. I need you to write this. Anything you cannot take a break from, you become a slave to. Let me say that again. Anything you cannot take a break from, you become a slave to. One more time. Anything that you cannot take a break from, you become a slave to. Here's the issue. You have taken an ownership role and not a stewardship role. That's why you can't unplug, because you feel like everything gonna sink. Let me tell you why you think everything gonna sink absent of your hand and your fingerprint. It's because you've taken a ownership role and not a stewardship role. Hear me? The organization or family is solely about you. It's personally driven. I have many colleagues, I won't call no names, but many colleagues in ministry, I feel like they can't take a break because their name is what thrives the church. that was so funny. I had to chuckle myself. They think that their name, and that's part of the reason why succession in the African American church is so difficult, because you built the name on your name and not Jesus's name. So now when people come to church, they're not looking for Jesus, they're looking for you. It's personally driven. That's why you can't unplug. Right? Here's another one. They have failed to plan for their season of rest. They plan to fail for their season of rest. Hear me. Here's another one. Here's the other issue. You have mismanaged your financial resources, and you must stay. You've mismanaged your resources, and now you're not going on vacation, not because you don't want to. You're not going on vacation because you can't afford to. You're not going on vacation because you can't afford to, right? So here's the takeaway nuggets of challenge number 2. Understand that God runs the world and not you. You take your hands off of it. Take your hands off of it. And I had this experience during COVID because I felt I was guilty of taking the ownership role of the church and not the stewardship role. And God had to sit me down and show me that I might be able to run my church without you. And if you don't believe me, I'll let my church survive and thrive during the pandemic just off my word. Think about it. During the pandemic, we ain't had nothing but sermons. Nothing but sermons. And I wasn't the only one preaching. So the only thing that kept this church together was the word of God. And I would beg of you, to understand that God can run the world without you by choice before he teaches you by force. Hear me. Seasons of rest should be planned. Set aside a few dollars to facilitate that. And let me tell you something. If you're going to do something, do it right. If you're going to, that's one thing about vacations, and my wife and I, she'll tell you that I save up for vacations, because when I vacation. You understand what I'm saying? Do it right. Don't penny pinch on vacation. Set you a budget that allots you an opportunity to spend what you want, when you want it, how you want it, and enjoy it. Plan it. You plan for everything else. Hear the word of the Lord. Use your sick days, woman of God. Use your sick days, man of God. Use your sick days. Use all of your sick days. Because I'm going to use all of mine. Use all of your sick days. Use all of your sick days and plan it. You can plan a vacation no matter how the rate of it. But if you're going to plan it, spend some money. If you don't want to penny pinch on vacation, this is your time to rest. So I need you to plan it. Hear me, plan it. I can tell you right now, when I ain't going to be here, I can tell you right now. And I'm saving up money for that, because when I do it, I'm going to be at the front of the plane. I'm going to be in the highest pit suite and penthouse suite. I'm going to do it right. Listen, I'm going to drink whatever Kool-Aid I want to drink. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going to do it right. If you're going to do it right. If you're going to do it right. Hear me. You don't need, let me tell you this now, for those that will be naysayers, you don't need money to enjoy rest, but you can enjoy your rest a whole lot better when you got some money in your pocket. You understand what I'm saying? You don't need money to rest. You can go home and rest, but you enjoy rest better when you can rest with your toes in some tropical sand. You understand? You rest better. Rest is just better when you're on vacation, away from people and able to enjoy what God has given you. Let me give you challenge number 3, and I'm done. Challenge number 3, and I'm done. Many of us struggle with unplugging because we don't have an identity outside of work. I can't unplug for this because I don't have an identity outside of this. In our culture, identity is defined in large part by occupation or what you do. Hence the reason that when people have what we call small talk, and whether it's a church or the grocery store, or the mall, or wherever you find yourself, small talk, people always ask this question: what do you do for a living? What you do for a living? What do you do for a living? What field are you involved in? And this is our way of creating a created narrative about the person that we're talking to. Think about it. We do it so much it's unconsciously. People ask you what you do for a living, and you take their response and you begin to craft your created narrative about how valuable they are in life. Here's a key thought. When your role in life becomes the foundation of your identity, then you are no longer a human being, you are a human doing. When your role in life becomes the foundation of who you are, you're no longer a human being, you are human doing. Let me give you a closer example. There's a major difference in my context because, hear me, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm not a pastor. Pastoring is something I do. One more time. I'm not a pastor. Pastoring is something I do because I'm more than the label of pastor that so many put on me. I'm trying to press my thing. The reason that many people are afraid to unplug is because their identity is nestled inside of what they do, which makes them human doings and not human beings. I'm telling you to unplug and not build your identity or your foundation of who you are or your worth or your value to society based upon what you do. I'm not a pastor. I'm just a gentleman that happens to pastor because I'm more than what you do. Let me give you case in point. God forbid, I pray that you don't vote me out. But if by chance you would have voted me out, guess what? I'm still going to be Darold. And I'm still going to have an identity and a life outside of this church. Right? God forbid, this is a Baptist church. You can be here one day and go tomorrow. But understand, my identity is not wrapped up in being the pastor of Mount Hermon, because in my mind, I am bigger than one label that people have branded me with. That's what I'm trying to do. And this is important because many of us use work as a trauma response. Many of us use work as our modern day alcohol. Many of us use work as our modern day marijuana. Many of us use work as our modern day therapy, and that's simply to take it, allow it rather, to take us away from the pains in life we really don't want to face. Anytime, here's a nugget. Anytime that your job becomes generates something other or does something other for you than a paycheck, then there's a deeper issue there. Now, of course, there are some positive impacts that your job does for you. For many of us, it's ministry in different ways and so forth and so on. But when you're using your job as a source or a foundation for your identity or to make you somebody or to make you who you are, then that's a trauma response, because you're using that to really temporarily take you away from the pains and the uncertainty and the potential shame that you may find if you unplug for a moment. Here's a context in church. More often than not, those who are the strongest in church are the most broken at home. Soak in that. Those who are often, not everybody, but sometimes those who are the strongest at church are the most broken at home. And this is why you have so many fights for power and fights for status and fights for pocket spaces and fights for authority and so much at the church, because those who fight for power in the church don't really have an identity outside of the church. Those who go over and beyond to fight for power in the church really don't have an identity outside of the church. And this was made prevalent in so many churches during the pandemic, because in the pandemic, you ain't have no church like that. In the pandemic, you didn't get the spotlight from the lights and the reserved seatings and the name calling. No, you didn't get that. But here's my question. Who are you outside of church? How valuable are you outside of church? How would we define you outside of church? What's your reputation or your partnerships outside of church? Here's some questions that I want you to contemplate as we hasten to a close. Who are you when church is over? Who are you when church is over? Here's another question. Who are you outside of being a parent? Who are you outside of being a parent? Here's another one. What's your core values? I want all of you at the conclusion of this to really spend some critical time this week vacillating about this. What are your core values? Do you have a bucket list? And for many of you unfamiliar with this phrase, bucket list, it is a list of things that you really want to do before you die. They say before you kick the bucket, that's death, right? So what are some things? What are some continents you want to go? What are some countries you want to do? What are some things you want to do? Some members want to skydive. Some want to go to Jamaica. Some want to do this and some want to do that. What do you have a bucket list? If not, create one. And here's another one. Here's a big one. Can you enjoy you beyond your Christian walk? Can you enjoy you beyond your Christian walk? After you put the Bible down, after you stop shouting, after you pull off from Sunday service, do you like you? That's the question. Because if you don't even like you, how other folk gonna like you? Do you even like the person in the mirror? What do you like to collect? What's your favorite places to visit? What's your favorite food? I'm almost scared to ask this congregation that question, but what's your favorite food What's your favorite pastime? Who are you? I know what you do in church. I know we value you in church. I know what you do at work. I know your occupation. I know you're a mama. I know you're a daddy. I know you're an auntie. I know you're this and that. Who are you? That's what God is getting at when he's charging us to unplug for the Sabbath. Who are you? Find you. Some of us have found everybody else except you. Who are you? Do you even like to be around you? Right? If not, fix it. That's the point. So here is the homework to embrace, and I'm done. Read up on the Sabbath. Number one. Read up on the Sabbath. There's a book entitled by Abraham Herschel called The Sabbath, Its Meaning for Our Modern Time. I think that's a great book to start relative to the reading up of the Sabbath. Number two, identify a 24-hour block of time, then a 7 block of time for a vacation. It's supposed to be 7 days, but yeah. So identify a block. Just let's baby steps. You understand? So for many of us, we ain't never had no Sabbath. So identify 24 hours in which you stop and don't do nothing. You rest. You delight, do something that you enjoy, and you contemplate the goodness of God, the invisible God inside of a visible world. And then start doing that once a week, and then you start planning your 7-day Sabbath. Because I'm planning me a 7-day. My show. I felt good all about that. I'm planning me a 7-day Sabbath. Make you a list. Yeah. Number three, make a list of things that bring you delight. Not things that make you a good mama, not things that make your children like you, not things that make your church like you, not things that get the pastor to have you stand up and stand on a Sunday morning to recognize your achievements. I need you to make a list of things that bring you delight. Do you like kites? Do you like reading? Do you like collecting books? Do you like collecting spoons? Do you like collecting elephants? Do you like collecting turtles? Do you like traveling? Do you like do something that make a list of things that bring you delight? And number 4, prepare in advance. This is what I need you to do. Be demanding. Prepare in advance. Prepare in advance. So carve you out some time and carve you out some money and be strategic about your disappearing. Right? And number 5, find a good bully. And by that I mean boundaries. You need to find people of things that force you to sit and rest. Everybody needs a good bully. The reason that we rebel against bullies is because we only raise the ideology of bully from a negative perspective. But sometimes, let me say this, a bully is only bad when they push you to benefit them and not benefit you. All of us need that extra push to rest. All of us need that extra push to stop and understand that the world will keep going without us. All of us need that extra push to say, girl, go on a vacation. All of us need that extra push to say, brother, you worked so hard. Spend some of that money on you and go to a place that you want to go and do what you want to do. I'm done, but stress is what happens when you don't have systems in place. So our spiritual discipline tonight, which I hope not only pricked me, but pricked you, was to embrace the Sabbath. Stop. The world can go on without you. If you don't think so, howl off and die. Rest. Rest your mind, rest your heart, rest your soul, rest your body. Because if you're going to stop but not rest, then ain't no need of you stopping. Delight. Find what you like to do in life. Find what brings you joy. And contemplate the goodness of an almighty God, because this is not a day or 7-day period, or for some of y'all that got a whole lot of money, 14-day period in which you just take a break from God, but you take a break from everything else to celebrate the goodness of God in the earth and in your life. My hope and my prayer is that this little devotional lesson of mine blessed you in some sense and pricked you in some aspect of your life. As we transition to our period of the invitation, if by chance you're streaming us tonight, whenever you watch this and you are outside of the realm of safety and or outside of the realm of salvation, I would love to offer Christ to you. If you have not placed your personal faith in Jesus Christ, comment below it. I want to be saved. It's just that simple. Or send an email to info@mounthermonbaptistchurch.org for those that are a little shy. If by chance you're out of the realm of safety in some sense and you don't have a church home, I would love to be your pastor tonight. Tonight is late, but tonight would be a good day to give your life to Christ. It would even be a better day to join the church and to grow in the things of God over time. God, I would love to be your pastor. So if by chance this experience or this ministry has blessed you, feel free to join us in our period of generosity. And this is a portion in which we give back to God, a portion of what he has given unto us. And the church, even in the virtual space, said, amen. I heard y'all in the spirit. So if you've been blessed by this experience or our church and the work of our hands here at MHBC, feel free to join us in this period. So let me conclude by raising the two announcements that I raised at the opening of our experience, and that's this Saturday. And that's this Saturday at 8 a.m. you have the hospitality ministry garage sale. So come out and patronize them. And at 10 a.m. on the inside of our facility, you have the men's ministry locker room. So feel free to join us at either one of those experiences. Let us pray. Kind Father, in Jesus' name, thank you for this night. I pray that this lesson pricked all of those who had an ear to hear it, just as it has pricked me. God, give us the strength to put our lives in your hands holistically. God, give us the strength to understand that we have to learn how to stop being human doings and be human beings like you intended us to be, to rest our mind, to rest our hearts, to do what brings us joy, and to contemplate how good of a God you have been to us and to our earth and to our world. God, we ask that you bless everyone financially to make this Sabbath even the better. We ask that you bless everyone socially to make the Sabbath even the better. We ask that you bless everyone mentally and spiritually to make this pending Sabbath even the better. Not for form or fashion, but to the end that we can grow closer to you and to rest in the things that you've created for us and obey the spiritual discipline of the Sabbath. Keep your hand over this, your church, and we'll forever be mindful to give your name the honor, the glory, and the praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Go and stop. Go and rest. Go and delight. Go and contemplate how good God has been to you. God bless you.